So one of the biggest matchups of the weekend, Philadelphia Eagles coming off that ugly late loss on Monday night to the Atlanta Falcons, traveling to another NFC South foe, New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. Saints favored in this one by 2.5. Who had that one on their bingo card in the preseason? Over under at 49.5. They're expecting some fireworks, and it's because this Saints ground game, 185 yards per game so far this season. And the Eagles are giving up 157.5 a game themselves.
Can I get a 200?
We might see a 200 in this one. How do we see this going, and what do the Eagles do to mitigate those holes they're giving up defensively? Because Vic Fangio really hasn't altered much of his defensive game plan through 2 weeks, and I think it's cost them. You
got to challenge your guys, right, B-Mac? I mean, you've got dudes up front for this team. You've got guys like Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis on the line of scrimmage who should be imposing their will play in, play out. If I'm an offensive lineman, that should be a really tough ask for my group, is to go get these guys off the line of scrimmage. But we haven't seen that. We haven't seen a group that's bowed up. You know, sometimes you got to just dig those feet in the ground. You got to bow up and you got to man up a little bit. I know how hard the game is, and there's been times where I couldn't move a 3 technique off the line of scrimmage even if I had the offensive tackle with me. Well, I'll tell you what, the Saints are moving everybody off the ball, and it makes everybody's job easier, from Derek Carr to Alvin Kamara to Chris Olave to Rashid Shaheed. These guys are enjoying so much success offensively. It's all predicated on dominating the line of scrimmage. I love what Clint Kubiak's been able to do, but the real question, I don't have any questions about this group. I've seen them for 2 weeks. The only question I have is Philly ready for a backyard brawl at the line of scrimmage against this team? And if they're not, they're going to have to play from behind. Jalen Hurts is going to have to play catch-up. You made a great point earlier. Who's got the most turnovers in the National Football League between this season and last season? It's Jalen Hurts. So you get him in a disadvantageous situation down at the Dome. I just see this thing spelling nightmare for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I know the city of brotherly love, they're going to be brotherly shook after this one, probably.
Yeah, that's the most important matchup that I'm looking for in this ball game. You talked about Philly's run defense, and I know a few weeks when I was on with you guys, I talked about that's an area of concern, because during their glory years, which was about 2 years ago, when they made their Super Bowl run, they had 2 dominant D tackles that did a phenomenal job playing on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage and keeping their linebackers clean. Right now, we're not seeing that. You know, Jordan Davis plays too high, and that was a concern that I had before the season started. Those things have surfaced, and they're not playing tougher longer. That's the thing. When you play in the trenches, you have to be tougher longer than whoever it is you're going against. And we're not seeing that. So week 1, we saw Green Bay as a team offensively run up and down their defense. Monday night, we saw Bijan Robinson, Atlanta, run it down the teeth of their defense. They're going to get the same type of plays. And one thing Mike Tomlin used to tell us all the time in the locker room, anytime you put bad tape out there for the NFL world to see, be prepared to embrace it and be prepared. You're going to see it every week until you get it right. So with Alvin Kamara and the Saints, they're going to run it. And the thing I like about the Saints, no one is really talking about, the majority of their snaps are for under center, which makes the running game so prolific because of the downhill attack, not to mention when it comes to the zone, the outside zones, and then the play actions where they implement it, everything looks the same. You know, when you're talking about having a successful running game, most of the most successful running games are happening when the quarterback is under center. Kyle, you're a former offensive lineman. I really believe you love seeing the quarterback in the center when you're running the football, because everyone has an opportunity to establish momentum. But I do have a question. I know, Kyle, you say you didn't have a question with the Saints. I have a question for the Saints, guys. Is this success that they're having, is this a one-night stand with success, or are they creating a long-term relationship?
I think it's all about the circumstance, right? You got to have some perspective. And for this team, they've started the games hot, which has allowed them to keep that part of the playbook open, the run game, pounding the rock up front, being able to dominate on double teams. And to your point, everything looks the same with the Saints, and Mike will probably echo the same sentiments. But at the end of the day, we haven't seen the Saints team play from behind. The big question mark is what happens when they have to spread it out. They can't go under center. Everybody in the stadium knows they got to throw the football, and now you put 2 more receivers on the field instead of those 2 speed demons and all the bigs inside. Now we're playing a spread them out 2024 football game, right? Now we're not looking at this Clint Kubiak we're going to get under center and pound you front. So then the tackles have to protect. And when the tackles have to protect, that's where the question mark is for me. Can they get that done?
I think they're for real. I'll give you a few reasons why. The biggest being that this method of offensive football that they're running is tried and true. They look like the late 90s Denver Broncos with what they're running offensively, where Clint Kubiak's father was the offensive coordinator for those Broncos Super Bowl teams, where it's just inside, outside zone, under center. It is one of the most simplistic running games for the offensive line and those guys blocking up front. That's why you see their technique such in unison, play after play after play. It's because that's all they're really doing.
Simple stuff. Run on your track. If somebody's on your track, take them off your track.
100%. And then what they're doing off of that, though, is they have motion guys coming in motion. They're using a fullback. They're doing split zone with guys coming across the formation at the snap. And they're doing all this window dressing to kind of get those second-level defenders on their heels. And then when that's the case, the angles of attack to get to the second-level guys, you see these creases that are just massive for Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill, whoever they're really throwing back out there to run through. That's how you have Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara second and third in the NFL right now in EPA per carry. It's just because those guys are opening up freeways for them to run through. So it's a tried and true method of success. They have that, and then they're running deep shot play action passes off it with two wide receivers that run 4-3s. And so I think it's built to last. They have the personnel for it to last. And against this Philadelphia Eagles front, where they're super undisciplined in their run fit so far. They got a lot of guys who want to rush the passer and not hold up to double teams and take their medicine and really do their job in the run game. I think it could get ugly.
This is the kind of group that I would have loved to have played against, this Eagles group, with the group that the Saints have, because you and I know we're going to run the football. You have to make a business decision. And to your point, who's tougher for longer? That's what it comes down to. Snap number 6 for Jordan Davis has to look like snap 66. I need those plays to look the same. And that's really where it comes down to for the Eagles, being able to stay tougher for longer. But we know what they're going to do in New Orleans. They're going to run the football.
Hey, Mike, when you were talking about the split zones and things like that, real quick, a little scouting little tool with the Saints, and they make everything look the same, which is so strategic and so impactful. But anytime they condense their formations with their two-speed wide receivers, there lies the opportunities to take shots. Because you got to understand something. When you condense the formation as defenders or guys in the secondary, you're not condensing this formation to have these two not undersized, but smaller wide receivers block a big guy. No, you're trying to hit us with that zombie look, which is what we used to call it in Pittsburgh, where you have a condensed formation. You got a deep overlong with a deep post where they can hit that whole shot, that deep shot, like we saw against the Cowboys. So these are things that people will pick up on when you see everything looks the same. Condensed formation, be prepared to get that zone play action, and somebody is running deep, either Chris Olave or Rashid Shaheed.
Or Mason Tipton, who also runs a 4.34. So they got a lot of speed on that New Orleans roster. I want to quickly touch on the flip side of the ball, though, because we haven't touched on Philly's offense. And you mentioned Hurts and their turnovers. I'm worried about no A.J. Brown against this New Orleans Saints secondary. Truthfully, that offense without him this past week looked like a different animal against the Atlanta Falcons. No guys stepping up and really making plays on the outside. And I worry, because this New Orleans secondary has been playing some lights-out football the first 2 weeks of the season. This defense has some real teeth now. What do the Eagles do to move the ball? Are they going to have to rely on the running game themselves?
I mean, I totally could see this turning into a who can run the ball more effectively football game. And we saw at times last week that the Eagles were able to run the ball at will. But then, conversely, like their defense, there's some times where they look disjointed. There's simple stunts, simple run-throughs can get these guys. But at the end of the day, Jeff Stoutland, tremendous head offensive line coach in Philly. He'll have those guys right. They know the offensive line for Philly certainly knows what kind of ball game they're going into. I mean, this is not their first rodeo, particularly the guys that tackle. I think that they will show up ready to go, but the story is all going to be about that Philly defense stopping the run.
I agree. I think when you're playing on the road in this type of environment there in New Orleans, the crowd is going to be fired up. So start running the football. I love seeing Jalen Hurts run the football. He had around 85 yards. I love seeing him being a +1 in the running game. But without A.J. Brown, their passing offense is not the same. They've been trying for such a long time to try to go get a number 3 wide receiver. They got in Jahan Dotson. I don't know if he's acclimated to their offense just yet. But they are not the same passing game without A.J. Brown. So now you need to really rely on the running game and stay patient with it. Don't detour if it kind of, it's not as effective as you would like it to be. Stay with the running game, but that has to be important. And to your point, this is going to be old-fashioned football. The team that outrushes the other is probably going to win this ball game.